true, that we all just take for granted and believe. Let's look at the big glaring gaps, the things that we know what we should do and we're not doing, and then let's have a call to action. Let's say, what can you guys do to help make this a better situation without it being a huge, you know, I mean, something we can all just pitch in and help with, and you can really see some results. You can be fulfilled. That was our objective for last night. So education is the only way you're going to get past this stuff, and that's why I say you got to be raising the education of everybody to make that happen.
Yeah, I was homeless before I was a teenager. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, you don't have to miss too many before you're on the streets.
Right. And quite honestly, to me, the litmus test of a good society is how we take care of our most vulnerable. It really is. I mean, that's what we should be really measuring ourselves against. Yeah.
How big of a green footprint is the downtown project?
Green footprint? Well, I'd love to see a great one. But Las Vegas, you know, you guys have ended up here. Las Vegas, as you guys know, has a horrible green footprint. I mean, that was just shocking to me. I mean, when I came here a year ago, even seeing recycling is like crazy. You know, it's like we're having to educate people. That's pretty foreign to me. But you start somewhere. Back to the education thing. I mean, you start where you're at and you start moving it up. You know, I don't want to speak for Tony. What I will say about him is he's a smart guy that evolves. Doesn't mean he's a perfect guy, because he's not. I've seen him make lots and lots of mistakes, but what I'll give him credit for is he evolves, he learns, and he's willing to see them and gradually do those. I don't think the downtown, I mean, if you're bringing that question up, you must have an interest in the environment. I don't think the downtown Las Vegas, with or without Tony, is going to survive unless we start addressing environmental issues. Unless we start living green, unless we start thinking differently. And so when you look at Tony's experiment and you start saying, all right, well, here's the variables that he needs to be successful. He needs to get population density down here. He's got to start getting some of these businesses to start bringing in some revenue, so he's got some sustainability. He's also going to have to address the environment. Huge water issues, huge environmental issues. We've got golf courses. Man, in the desert, you know, on that strip. Crazy, yeah.
I guess it's kind of banking off the last question. In your perspective, what's the vision of the downtown project in the next 5 years as far as job growth and business opportunities?
Well, I think if Tony's, it's a big gamble, it's a big risk. So just to give you a breakdown of what it is, I mentioned 19 blocks, 60 acres. That's the footprint as it stands right now. It is $350 million is what he spent, personal money, which is really unique, treating it much like an entrepreneurial venture. $200 million went into real estate. That's what the 19 blocks was bought. $50 million into small businesses, $50 million into tech startups, $50 million into arts, culture, education. So that's kind of how, those are the buckets and how it worked. You guys don't need to look too far to take a look at Container Park over here. I think even better example is this Eat Restaurant, or, you know, down the street at Johnny Carson with the, you know, O-Face Donuts and the Grassroots, you know, juice bar and the yoga stick. Those are all small businesses that absolutely are folks like you. Yeah.
Sorry, that was going to ask you earlier. I didn't know if you had any with the planning or if you know where it's going, but there was a story on how all this it was on Channel 3 on how there was so much alcohol being sold in this area. And with what he's going to do without this area, it can't all be bars and restaurants. Do you have any idea of what other things he's thinking of doing?
You know, he's done a couple of very innovative things. If it was up to me, which is not, it's not my money, and the bars and restaurants, the restaurants are a little different, you know. I love the fact that I don't know if you guys know Eat Restaurant down here. You know, that's a woman who probably could not have gotten a small business loan, and if she could have, probably shouldn't have, just because it would have put her in deep jeopardy. And I love the fact of some of those folks being given chances to start businesses and having a chance to run them home. And they're run kind of like venture capital. So, you know, so I invest whatever it is, you know, $50,000, $100,000 into your juice bar, your yoga studio, your restaurant, and then what happens is if it fails, you go on to fight another day. You know, this isn't like you got to pay it off. If it succeeds, then gradually you start paying the loan back. We become partners. That's kind of like venture capital works. I like the fact of average folks having places, and those are easy places for people to start. They are, you know, grocery stores and, you know, restaurants and things that make it feel like a home. You're right about the bars. I know it's an easy answer to revenue for folks. You know, a buddy of
the town we're in.
Yeah, I mean, it is, and it's, you know, and I would like to see us show. I'm not saying that I'm not going to criticize anybody. I would like to see us look for alternative, a little more creative solutions. So I'd like to see us thinking a little differently, a little out of the box. If nothing else, it gives variety. And I also would like us, and this is something I've learned in the last year, and this is me talking from my perspective, not from Tony's. I don't want to speak for him. But the one thing that I think is so critical that so people miss is generosity. And what I mean by that is there's a book by a guy named Adam Grant, okay? He's a big guy. He's a business guy. The University of Pennsylvania, Wharton Business School. It's called Givers and Takers. And what he essentially, this is research driven. This isn't just some guy's, you know, idea, philosophy. It's actually, he proved it. He did his research. And what it is that leaders can be successful by any manner. And you can name them just like I can. You could be a giver, you could be a taker, or you could be one of these guys that, you know, quid pro quo. You know, I'm going to give you what I think you might give back to me, what potential you have. I think you got potential to maybe help me, you not so much. So I'm not going to pay any attention to you, but I'll pay some time to you because maybe down the road there's something for me. We all tend to fall mostly in that middle ground. Some guys are takers, you know, they just use people up. There are a few givers. But any of those could be initially quickly successful, all right? They could do that. But over time, long-term thinking, it's always the givers who win. It's the givers who sustain. And you can figure out why. It's because they build loyalty. They build commitment. People are bought in with them. You know, if I'm a taker, man, I might be stuck in that job, and I might do what you tell me I got to do because I have to. But as soon as I can get out of here, I'm gonna. And I'm certainly not going to do any more than I have to. I don't care about you. I don't want you to succeed. I'm just doing what I have to do because that's maybe where my paycheck's coming. And my hope to Tony, and the influence, if I have any on him, is to continue to be somebody with a generous thinking mind. It takes guts because short-term thinking, which is kind of what bars are like, you know, put it in there, people will buy it, that's what we do, we know we can make money. That is not really creative, that could be considered as short-term. Me looking at a deal that sees how I'm going to get money off of you is short-term. Me thinking of how the community can be built, how actually making a place we want to live could actually help me in the long run, even if it's not in the immediate place. I'll give you an example. He's building a grocery store, all right? The grocery store, certainly for a time being, and maybe for a long time being, is going to lose money. You know, they know that. It's going to lose money.
That's how it works.
It is, and the reason they can't get it, the reason why he paid for it himself, is because he couldn't get anybody else to come here and do it. Why? Because they sit there and do the ledger sheet and say, I need this many people to put in this investment to make this amount of money. And if the numbers don't add up, I'm not going to do it. I don't care if you guys got a grocery store or not. That makes sense to me. But a forward-thinking person says, look, you're not going to come here with your families and raise your kids here if you don't got a grocery store. You got to go drive everywhere, take a bus to go get them. You're not going to go do that. A grocery store, man, is important to make people think and make it a better place to live. And maybe if I put a grocery store in here, maybe if I don't make a bunch of money, but it brings people, brings a different lifestyle, brings a different type of person, maybe that makes the bigger picture better. Makes the bigger picture better. And so I hope you're right. If I have any ear to him, that's what I'm going to preach. He has done some of those things. The grocery store, he's got a metropolitan transportation thing that he's going to be launching here soon. You guys know about that at all? It's called Shift. It's essentially the idea is if you're going to back to your going green idea, the question back there a second ago, if you're going to raise the population density, which is what he wants to do, what's going to happen? Bring a lot of people, and that's what you're doing. And then what do? They bring cars. And now what you do is now, okay, we got a lot of people, we got more money, we go into the stores and stuff, but we also got traffic jams, we got to build parking garages, all of that stuff that goes with it. And it's not environmentally sound. It's an old way of thinking. So what he is doing is he's created a metropolitan transportation that's going to be launching. That's on your app. You say, I want to go to the Smith Center, and it's going to tell you, I've got a bike, much like New York and London, a bike program. I've got a two-seater electric vehicles. I've got Teslas and cars, almost like an Uber. That holy cow, man! Almost like Uber that'll come pick you up, and I bought 3 trolleys. So that's what he's got.
It's communication, or what is it? Communication for transportation, basically.
You take the means of transportation that you need to get where you want to go. So if I can walk, I walk. If I can take a bike and just bike there, I bike. If I'm older or not really get around in the city, I might take a little 2-seater car and do it like a zip card, check it out, run around. Right. If I want to go pick you up at the airport, I might go get one of the Teslas that he bought or one of the cars and go drive and get you. And I might just have a trolley that goes to certain places. And interestingly enough, they're going to be tracking through computers how the city moves. So they'll be mining all this data. So eventually, they'll be able to know where you're going to be. 10 o'clock, you like to be here. So we're going to try to have vehicles because, man, we'll have a whole room full of people getting out at a certain time, and they'll all be wanting to go to kind of a certain destination. So we'll be prepared for that and actually be able to predict the movement of a city.
And see where the waste is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I just have a question that, you know what the school's about, that most of us are coming from a situation that's been lower class, not lower class, but we've had our problems. So the learning part of this is amazing to me. I mean, I'm really pumped and enthused and want to do it. So my question to you would be is what could we do to maybe help this or to be a part of it, to what you guys are doing?
So I'll answer that two ways. First way is everyone. So my students are in a way no different than you. They're young, in their case, you know, and again, there is differences, but I'm talking about hitting the job market. In their case, they got no experience, they're young, and so they're going to an employer in a tough economic market, and they're trying to convince someone to give them a chance. All right? Largely, that's what you guys are doing too. And so there needs to be 2 things. There needs to be a strategy on your part to continue to learn, to have a sincerity, to have the right kind of spirit that I see you and I say, I want to give you a chance. And then there needs to be something on the other side that helps you. When we were talking last night about the homelessness, they asked one of the guys, what's the best thing that, this is from the city. Somebody from the city was there. So what's the best thing that we could do? Give me one thing right now that we can do to help you. And he said, I need jobs. I need you to designate jobs to these folks that are homeless because man, we're competing out there in a tough, we're still coming. I mean, Las Vegas arguably got hit the worst in the 2008 recession. Oh, yeah. It arguably got hit the worst, and now what we're doing is. So you're competing against people with years of experience and connections and resources and all that. It's not a fair fight.
They're going to hurt the worst because the 5 years before that was the fastest growing city in the world.
Exactly.
Everybody was moving here, and when it fell, there's a bunch of extra people here.
It was, and who got hurt by that? I mean, the folks in the Strip with the casinos, yeah, they lost money on the casinos and stuff. Yeah, but the guys that are valet parking cars and the guys that are dealing blackjack and those are the guys that were, those are the guys that had, they didn't have a lot of excess to go through. So when they lose their job, that's serious. And that's where I go back to about how a city, a community, forward-thinking people, because here's the thing, you can look at it intrinsically and say, look you're a caring, good guy that needs a chance and wants a job. I recognize that, so I want to help you. So that's an intrinsic way. You can also make this exact same argument extrinsically and say, look we got to find ways to employ these folks because we want them to be productive citizens that are making the city a better place. And the way to do that is you got to carve out some space for him. You got to carve out some space. I will say, and I don't speak for Tony, and he's imperfect just like I am. All right, and makes mistakes just like I do. But he is an atypical CEO. He's an atypical CEO, so that gives you some hope. Again, I don't want to speak for him, but he's a guy that does walk the street. He's a guy that if you were roaming around down by the Ogden Avenue in Las Vegas, you'll see him come out of his place every day and walk the street just like you and I do, and that's encouraging. He also doesn't put a lot of too much weight in education, and I mean education not in the sense of being smart and learning and wanting to learn. I'm talking about degrees, and I'm talking about titles. In fact, Zappos and Downtown Project have no titles, and so the whole hierarchy thing, he doesn't put a lot of weight. He puts a lot in what he sees in people, and I think, you know, like I said, all of us are imperfect. I think that's a good model. So here's what I'm hoping. I mean, it's an imperfect world, man. I'll be honest with you. It's an imperfect world with lots of things that need to be corrected. But I'll give you one example that gives me some hope. If you look at Zappos, when Tony first started doing Zappos, all right, people thought he was crazy. People thought he was crazy. He was going to create a workplace, largely with people that those takers would say, just run it through a disposable. These are people on call centers answering phones. Those aren't high-skilled, high-paid jobs. You know, those are the people that usually you just burn them out. You work them as hard as you can. You know, they last as long as they do, and then you just, if they drop by the side, you go find somebody else to take their seat, right?
Right.
So what he said is, wait a minute, man. Doesn't have to be that way. Doesn't have to be that way. What we can do is we can build a place that values them, that treats them well, that gives them a livable wage. They're not going to be rich, but they can live. And we're going to create a work environment where they can actually not only be fulfilled, but have fun. Go Google search sometime and look up Zappos, just hit images, and see what their workplace looks like. All right? Yeah. Now when that came out, people thought two things. They thought, this guy is a nut. This is a nut. There's no way I'm turning you guys loose and having fun and doing this kind of craziness. And even if it's intrinsically good, it's a bad business model. It's a bad business model. So yeah, I'm giving you guys some fulfillment, making you feel good, but you know what? At the end of the day, the business is going to fail. It's not going to work. So it's a dumb idea. In time, both of those have proven wrong. And interestingly enough, I take a tour now of Zappos. It's a nice place, but it doesn't shock me because I've seen tons of those now. Because people realize that if I want to get the most out of my employees, if I want them to, just extrinsically, I want them to give to the company, think about it, be loyal, you know, work and stuff. Man, if I make that a place they like to go to, if I make it a place they feel vested, then it's actually better for me.
But on my point of view, I gotta be willing to do it.
Pardon?
I gotta be willing to commit to that kind of thing. That's what I gotta do. Right?
You do. I mean, you're part. At the end of the day, if somebody gives you a chance, yeah, shame on them. Shame on them. Shame on our society if all you guys are ready to give 110%. And like, trust me, man, you give me a chance, you will find no better employee than me. Shame on them. Shame on you if they give it and you don't. All right? You know, I mean, it's a give and take. And if you don't have a long resume, then what they want to see is that you're a learner, that you're working, that you've got something here. Because let me tell you something. I've met a lot of PhDs that, man, they can barely tie their shoes. You know, I mean, they may know one thing like a buffalo nickel, like, and they can tell you everything about it. But they really, you know, that heart, that commitment, that stick to it, they're just like anybody else. It just doesn't, you know. And then I've met a lot of other folks, man, that just because the way their path traveled, they don't have those credentials. But, man, oh yeah, they'll be there for you. They're the guy you call at the middle of the night, man, and they're there. They're there fixing the furnace because it broke into place because they care about the business, you know. And that's the kind of guy. If you give me a choice, that's the guy I want. So be that guy. Be that guy.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I used to live in Tokyo, in Japan. Actually, the Japanese model of doing business is very fantastic because you don't know even which is the boss when they're trying to do something. And right after they finish work, they actually call a place called Ginza in Tokyo, where everybody eats together and drinks and relax a little bit. So most Japanese work for the company for lifetime. They're dedicated and very happy and very disciplined people. That's why they were succeeding on the 80s, even the 90s, before China took over. So I like the Japanese model of doing business.
That's very true, but I'll be honest with you. Unfortunately, if you take a look at what's going on right now and every trend that you would see moving forward, it's unlikely that any of us are going to plug into a job and be there 30, 40 years. It's unlikely. It just, the trend right now, most of my students will go through 5 or 6 careers on average, not jobs, but 5 or 6 careers. And the world's changing a lot. I'll tell you right now, if you had all these fancy degrees, you're still going to have to be continual learners because that's what the world is asking. I think the model of loyalty to employees, I think the model of, I believe there needs to be leaders. I've been watching some of the systems. There's holacracy is something that Tony's playing with right now, a system where it's a little less centralized leadership. I think there needs to be leaders that help guide and have vision and move people forward. But I also think that they need to understand and respect and care about and respect and listen to and appreciate the people that are under their charge. There needs to be a compassion that if I employ you, I'm going to be transparent with you. I want you to know what's going on, and I also have a responsibility because I took you on, and I take that deeply, and it keeps me up at night. That not only do I have you working for me, but you're paying your bills with that, and you have a family, and you have a life, and there's a human element to this as well. But I think we do need to realize these kind of entrepreneurial skills. I don't mean that we all got to be entrepreneurs and create Googles and stuff. I don't mean that. But we need to have these kind of entrepreneurial skills where we're able to know how to sell ourselves, to be creative, to continue to learn, to continue to find value, to pay attention. Because, again, it's not, unfortunately, or depends on how you look at it, but unfortunately I don't think that plugging in 30-year career is happening much anymore. It's happening much more. Yeah.
Last question because we have to move on. Make
Okay.
it good, William.
Professor, I'd like to know what your take would be on what's going on in Las Vegas to happen in your hometown where you were born.
That's why I came here. That's why I came here. Because I'll tell you why I came here, and I hope as long as I have any influence on Tony and Tony's ear, this will be my mantra. I'm not gonna shy away from this. And when I go back to my home, this will be my mantra. I came here for a different vision. I get return on investment. All right, I get. I'm not a super successful business guy, but I understand that if you don't make money, you don't stay in business very long, right? You know, you guys know Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You guys remember that from like high school or something? If you don't, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a pyramid, and the idea was that, and this was on a human level, an individual level, that you needed to have food and shelter and these kind of things. You're not going to be pondering the deep questions of the world if you're cold and hungry, all right?
That's right.
So you need to do that. But once you got that, once your cabinet's full of food and you got a roof over your head, you have a responsibility to start moving up the pyramid. You start looking at how I can live a deeper, richer, more meaningful life. It's not just about things. It's not just about more food, more possessions, bigger house. Tony, when I met him, we discussed this, and he believes that model can and should apply to a corporation. If you don't make money, you're not on that, kind of that notion of bringing a profit in. You don't stay around very long. You don't keep your lights on. But once that engine is running well, you have some kind of responsibility to move up the pyramid. What am I doing for my customers more than just selling them goods and services? What am I doing for my employees besides just your service for my paycheck? And what am I doing for the community that I reside in? Tony talked about a different idea when I came here a year ago. Return on investment, yes, but a second ingredient, return on community. Yeah. Return on community. So there's a guy, I'm probably running out of time, but just give me 2 more seconds. There's a guy named William McDonough. He's an architect. And he talks about in architectural terms that when you design a product, any product, it's like 101 architecture, 101 design, you design for a couple things. You design for aesthetics, what's it going to look like, function, what's it going to do, and cost, right? Makes sense? Right. And if I ask you to design something for me and you bring it back and say, hey, it looks beautiful and it works just like you want, it's going to cost you $1 million, I'm going to say, take it back, man, to the drawing board. You don't got it right. I need that thing for about $100, not $1 million. And you got to go solve for that. And so as a designer, as you're working at it, you're playing with all 3 of those at the same time. I got to bring it into cost. It's got to do what the guy wants to do, and got to make it look nice. He is an environmental architect, so back to your green question, he says, put it on the table and say, keep those things, but add one more element to it. How is what are you designing, how is it making the world taking care of it? Is it doing harm to the world? Is it green? Is it sustainable? And if you factor that in and make that a requirement, you can begin to now make products that make sense. When we talk about communities, we talk about cities, I would use the same analogy. Okay? We got to make money, but as you're planning your business, as you're planning your city, as you're mapping this thing out, not only think just in terms of what I'm giving you and what I'm getting back. Think about how we could do that and how it also can make lives better. And I think that when I go back to Iowa City, which I will, it's exactly what I'm going to be saying. Return on investment, yes, but not without return on community. Thank you, guys. All right, man. Well, hey, I hope that was all right, man. I didn't mean to take an hour on you. So thank you. I came here, though, because I really applaud what you guys are doing. Yes?
Can you give me connections for, because I was doing the
Absolutely. Could you, let me give it through him. Could you connect with me? You have my phone number, right? Mm-hmm. All right, so call me, and I'll give you the names of the people that came last night. He'll give them to you, and I'll give him a heads up that you'll be contacting them. One guy in particular is unbelievable, unbelievable, and I know he'd help you. So,
is that the guy that wrote the book?
I was actually thinking Matt would be good too, but I was thinking Tim. I was thinking Tim.
I think Tim is going to come.
Oh, Tim's going to come here? You might actually get to meet him yourself then. But I'll give you the names to him.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
And please make sure you give me a call.